Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Britton's Hangout Hour. Should I do it? Since the man is here once upon a time?
Huh.
Probably not. That might be a little too corny here today. But I'm here with Brian Bell, also known as BellTube. How you doing today, sir?
I'm great. How are you, Britton?
I'm doing okay, man. I just got home. I'm eating here, so probably gonna make fun of me in the comments. That's fine. I can live with that.
That sounds good. Have some for me.
So, yeah, you run a YouTube channel called. I actually was, funnily enough, I was actually watching your newest video, as of the recording of this, anyway, on
Okay.
on the way over there. So, yeah, you've really blown up pretty quickly on BookTube.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot to gauge it against. So I guess it's gone pretty quick. I haven't really been there for a lot of new channels to see them launch to know really how long it takes, for somebody to grow their channel, other than, some of the guys that have been around for several years. And even then, I was a little bit late to the party. Mike probably had, 50,000 subscribers by the time I saw him or something like that. So, yeah, I haven't really watched a whole lot of people start from zero to get to wherever. Um, I don't know. Didn't really know BookTube was even a thing until about 3 or 4 years ago.
Mm. Yeah, I know what you mean. I discovered like Daniel Green first. And I'm like, oh, there's a bunch of people who do this. Oh, very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even know he existed until probably, I don't know, maybe 6 months after I started watching Mike, and then the algorithm would start suggesting Daniel Green's videos. But yeah, I don't know.
Excuse me. Um, so, have you been reading for a long time, or is it something
Oh
you've kind
yeah.
of come back to, or?
No, I started really, really young. So they had me, I was probably in like, I think I was in like fourth or fifth grade, something like that. And they had me reading way above my level
Mm,
for what grade I was in, which I didn't really like because I can't even tell you what the books were. I don't remember them, but I remember that they were really boring. And, I'm just
you remember
really,
that?
yeah, I mean, I'm really lucky that I've embraced readings at such an early age and didn't get turned off to it because it's sort of like learning a musical instrument. Like I can see the drums, behind you.
Hmm.
I've been playing piano since I was 7, and I got really lucky in that the first guy that I had teaching me piano was in a rock band, and he wanted me to be able to basically play whatever rock music I wanted to learn. So it got me kind of invested in wanting to do it. Whereas with the books, at an early age, essentially they had me reading these books that were above my grade that I found really boring. And I'm just really glad I didn't let that turn me off to reading in general.
Hmm.
So, yeah. And my grandfather used to buy me books, so that was cool. That's basically the one memory I have of my grandfather is that he would show up at my house with a crate of books and go, "Here you go." I was probably, I mean, I was only 7 when he died, so I was definitely reading really young.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I also started reading when I was young, though. I'll admit, initially I read because the books I had would have pictures in them,
Okay,
illustrations. So I'd look
sure.
at the illustrations, and then I realized the stories were pretty nice too. So yeah, there you go.
There you go.
But it also seems like you've had a interesting life. You've owned a nightclub. You've met some people. You said you met
Yeah.
Prince once.
Oh, I met Prince a
Um.
bunch of times.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was a regular customer.
You've met you met Peter Capaldi. You said
Yep.
I
Yeah,
think I saw you say that on a stream once, or I think you
that is
commented that.
true. Yeah, I was at a Comic Con and I met Peter Capaldi, and I think on the same day I met John Barrowman. So that was kind of a fun deal.
Man, I almost met John Barrowman at a con a few years ago. Sadly, he wasn't there that day. I was very sad about that.
Yeah, I stood in line to meet him, and I stood in line to meet Peter Capaldi. Super nice guys, both of them. So, I mean, that's kind of, I guess, what you would probably expect, from them, being as though they're at a signing that, they're kind of prepped up mentally for it. And they're not just sitting in some restaurant and you walk up to them and start, yapping at them. So they were there for a purpose. They did their purpose great. I got some great photos. I should probably put those photos up behind me on
The
my
nerd
shelves
cred.
because, yeah, there's a great photo of me and the doctor and another one of me and John Barrowman. So super fun.
Oh, I bet you two had a fun time. I know John Barrowman's a colorful character.
Yeah, it was really funny because, like, it was both of them were really cool. So the John Barrowman, when I went into the little booth area that they had for photography, he basically just gave me like this running hug, like I've known the guy forever. It was crazy, but it was a lot of fun, and we took a photo like that. And with Peter Capaldi, I walked in, and it was a really similar experience. I don't know if these guys just have it kind of down how they do it, but he looked at me like, "Oh my God, I haven't seen you in like 20 years. How you been? Blah blah blah." And he was just glowing, so happy. And I was just, yeah, put me in the right mood to take a great picture. That's for sure. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
so I
that's
own a night. I owned the nightclub for 15 years, and that was, what it was. And then when the pandemic came, it was time to just be done with that because you can't really do social distancing with a nightclub. And they wanted us to pay full rent on the space, even though the state shut us down. So that didn't make any sense. I didn't want to go out and borrow money just to pay rent when I'm not even there.
mm-hmm.
So it was time. And 15 years in the bar business. If you're good at a bar, you can last 3 years. If you're great at a bar, you can last about 5. Because nightclubs, just in general, they have a lifespan. And after a while, there's a million new kids on the block, and you're just kind of yesterday's news. And somehow, I bought the bar when it was 9 years old, and I kept it going for, like I said, about 15 or 16 more years. So lasted about 25 years in total, which is pretty incredible.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Met lots of celebrities, definitely hung out with Prince more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times. So yeah, fun
Did he
stuff.
know you on like a first name basis, or did he
Oh
just?
yeah, for sure. So
That's
we
pretty
had a
cool.
we had a we had a booth in our club that we built for him called Prince's Booth. And we would reserve it out to people. They'd pay us some money and they could sit in Prince's booth. It was all gated off and everything that you would imagine, right? So the brass poles and the red velvet ropes and all of that stuff. And really the only caveat is, hey, if Prince shows up, you got to get up. That's, he's coming in. So I would get a text from time to time, and it'd be either his driver or he had a couple of guys that were basically his, I don't know if it was bodyguard or security or just kind of guy that he was always with, would shoot me a text and say, hey, we're going to be there. Can you let us in the back door? So nobody knows he's in there and all that good stuff. So yeah.
um, was he oh um so what was Prince like? Was he nice to you, or was he kind of just like, oh yeah, just another day at the business, or?
I think the first time I met him, he was a little weirded out just because he knew the prior owner of the bar and was
Mm,
very comfortable with the fact that he could come in there and totally be himself. There's no cameras, taking photos of him. This is before everybody had a camera on their phone. So
yeah.
he was really comfortable being there. And we played almost exclusively electronic dance music, which he absolutely loved. So I think the first time that I met him, he was a little bit apprehensive because he wanted to know if my vision for the place was going to be vastly different than the prior owner, because that for him meant he'd have to go find a new place to hang out.
Mm,
And, I assured him and his buddies that, now everything's the same. It's cool. And yeah, so we got to know each other. He basically just trusted me enough to come back a few more times and make sure everything was copacetic and nothing had changed, and it didn't. So yeah, he'd come down quite a bit.
wait, so I mean, if I remember right, you're from Minnesota.
Yeah.
So was Prince from Minnesota?
Oh yeah. Prince is basically the voice of Minneapolis. There's a gigantic, I think it's like a 4-story billboard mural of him downtown Minneapolis.
Well, that tells you how much I know about Prince. I've just heard some of his music. My aunt's a big fan, so there you
Gotcha. Yeah.
go.
Yeah, he's
She has a Purple
he's
Rain T-shirt,
right. Yeah, absolutely. He's a pretty quiet guy, pretty private, for the most part, when he, at least when he was out socially, amongst the group that he would come with, he was, pretty engaging, but just in general, he just kind of liked to let things happen around him, and he was an observer of everything. He would listen to the DJs quite a bit, specifically what kind of mixes they were doing. He was very interested in the music. So that was what he was really there for. But he'd bring an entourage of people,
Yeah, he
pretty
started he
regularly.
started playing pretty young, didn't he?
Oh yeah. I mean, he played every instrument. I mean, on his early albums and probably on most of his later albums too. I mean, he literally, like Stevie Wonder, played every single instrument on the albums.
Mm.
So the only reason he had a band was, so he could play live.
For convenience sake.
Yeah, exactly. But he wrote everything himself. He wrote all the parts himself. I mean, the guy was complete prodigy.
Mm. I guess I didn't realize he was from Minnesota. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So, who else have you met during your time as a bar owner?
Oh man, a ton of people. I had to decide at one point pretty early in my career if I was going to kick Lindsay Lohan out because she was underage. So I didn't had to kind of make a call there. Partied a lot with a lot of athletes, so whenever they were in town playing the Vikings, the Twins, the Timberwolves, we get a ton of athletes. Troy Aikman, Joe Buck, had a lot of beers with David Beckham, which was really fun because he was in town for something, promoting some soccer event. And
Minnesota,
Beckham,
they know how to throw down, I guess.
oh yeah, it's freezing cold here half the year, so people go inside and party. So.
That's awesome. What was Troy Aikman like? I'm a Dallas fan, so.
He was pretty chill. Actually, I want to say I met him and he was calling a game with Joe Buck. And I met him at the hotel that they were staying at because they had kind of a cool hotel bar. Sometimes I would go there on a Friday or Saturday night. I think it was probably a Saturday night that I was there because they were calling probably the Sunday afternoon game. And so I think the three of us were doing just drinks at the bar. And then I told them that I owned a nightclub just down the street. And I don't remember if Troy Aikman came with us, but I know Joe Buck did. And Joe Buck and I just put down a million shots after shots. And
What was Joe Buck like?
He kept up with me, which, at the time, man, hats off to you. If you can keep up with the club owner doing shots. Yeah. He did a journeyman's work for sure.
Wait, isn't it like not allowed to the bar owner to drink stuff? I've watched a lot of bar rescues, so I don't. I might.
No, I mean, I think that's John Taffer's shtick. He'll go in and he'll see that there's bar owners that are, partying with their product more than running a business. And so when that bar rescue show came on, and you got to understand a lot of that is staged as well. And for every line, I mean, Britton, you and I could open a nightclub, in Oklahoma, and I promise you I can get it packed as hell for, 2 weeks. And then I leave town like he does on the show. And then you're back into, we're struggling, we need help. So his ideas are really good, but, there's a reason that a lot of these people haven't implemented them. And I think a lot of people get into the bar business because they think it's, super profitable and I can party my face off and there's just, all this to it, but it's a ton of work. And it is, if you can get to the point where as an owner, you can sit and have cocktails, then what that tells me is you've got a system in place that the night can run without your constant direction and that you've got staff and employees and a team around you that are savvy enough to kind of understand what's going on. And there's also an aspect of it that just as a bar owner, there are people that like to party with the owner of the bar. It's just something that, hey, I'm drinking with the bar owner. It's kind of cool. And, half the drinks I had were probably severely watered down by my staff because I don't want them getting me too drunk to, count out cash at the end of the night and all that stuff. So,
Yeah,
a lot of
probably.
it is theater. A lot of it is smoke and mirrors, but you got to remember that you're putting on, basically a show. And in my mind, that's what the nightclub business kind of is. You have to put on an entertaining show, whether it's with music or live entertainment or with a very engaging staff or something. If you're going to do a nightclub, if you're going to do a bar, then it's just really, really different. People just go there to sit and drink and commiserate with each other or hang out. But a
watch
club is a little
watch
bit
the
different.
game on occasion.
What's that? Yeah, exactly. I didn't even have TVs in my club.
Oh
You
wow.
know, in my vision of what a nightclub is, TVs don't belong because I want people engaging with each other and talking to each other, not sitting around watching a game. There's plenty of sports bars for that, and if that's what people had on their mind to go do, we weren't the place to do it.
So going back to Prince, would he like throw down on the dance floor? Or would he just kind of stand around and hang out, or?
Mostly hang out in his own private areas. I think one time he did grab a guitar and plug in and jam along with the DJ, which was pretty cool.
Mm,
But again, him and kind of a lot of celebrities, and I understand why, because they're in the public light so much that sometimes they just kind of want to be chill and not be, the center of attention. And he was very much like that. He'd be the kind of guy that basically wants to hang out in the VIP area and hang out as long as possible, even after bar close, because he was a complete night owl. He would throw events out at Paisley Park, which is his studio. If you ever Google Paisley Park, you'll see his recording studio out there. But he would throw events out there that started at 3 a.m, and he would get on stage and start playing and go till noon, whenever. The guy just was very much a night owl.
so you've had a lot of adventures in your time. It sounds like.
Yeah, definitely. I was in the packaging business before the bar business, and before that, I was in college and lived in Europe for a little bit. So lots of different things.
What are you doing in Europe?
I went to college, London School of Economics, did a half a year over there as
Oh
part of my bit.
wow.
Yeah, I got some business degrees from University of Madison, Wisconsin at Madison, rather.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Oh wow, that's neat.
I've lived a lot of places in the States. I've been here in Minneapolis. I've lived in Chicago. I've lived in Madison. I've lived in Scottsdale, Arizona. Where else? Maybe that's it. My folks live in California. My sister lives in Florida. So
So you
all over
guys
the
are all
place.
over the place.
Yeah.
So are you originally from Minnesota?
Yeah. Born and
Okay.
raised here. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
It's really weird. It's like my house right now where I'm sitting is like 6 or 7 minutes away from the house I grew up in.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
I
That's
like it. It's kind of fun. And I
yeah.
certainly know the area.
So yeah, you like the Vikings?
Huge Vikings fan, yeah, but it's the Vikings are one of the toughest teams to be a fan of because they're always just kind of good enough that they've got a chance. They're never so bad that you just count them out, you don't even get excited, but they're never good enough to make that final step.
Yeah,
At
kind
least
of.
not really in my lifetime they haven't been.
Yeah, kind of sounds like the Cowboys, except I wasn't around when they were in their heyday in the '90s.
Yeah, I mean, in the 90s, you guys can thank us because what happened was in the early 90s, the Vikings traded, I think it was like 12 players and I don't know how many draft picks for Herschel Walker. We got one player. That was it. And Herschel Walker was a great running back for us, but think the Cowboys, and someone will probably correct me if I'm wrong on replay, but I think the Vikings may have drafted Aikman with our pick,
Really?
or
Oh,
one of our
oh yeah.
picks. It's, we basically built their team that were, championship Super Bowl teams using our players and draft picks. I mean, it was the worst trade in professional sports history, bar none. Like I said, Google Herschel Walker trade sometime, and you'll be astounded. Something like that would never ever happen again.
Yeah, I watched I watched a. I don't know if you watch sports YouTube at all, But I watched this guy called Urinating Tree. He made a video called "The Minnesota Vikings Legacy of Failure."
Yeah,
So
it's probably pretty accurate, man. I mean, they've been to the Super Bowl 4 times. They've just lost every time.
yeah, yeah. You guys had Randy Moss though. That must have been a fun
Yeah.
run. That was
Randy Moss was just, next level, alien good. I mean, he's like Justin Jefferson now. Randy Moss is a blast. Adrian Peterson in his heyday was unbelievable. I mean, in 2000 and I want to say 12, he came 9 yards away from breaking the all-time single season rushing record that is held by Eric Dickerson. And I
I thought you were
think
gonna say
if I
OJ. I thought that
remember,
was OJ Simpson who had that.
no, it's Eric Dickerson. And I think if I remember right, we were all pissed off because they didn't hand him off the ball. He needed like 9 more yards to break, this all-time never to be broken single season rushing record again, is like 2,100 yards or something crazy like that. And didn't hand him the ball for the rest of the game. And we were like, oh, this is just such a Vikings type of thing to do.
Uh, do you think it's more painful to be a Vikings fan or a Browns fan?
I think Vikings, and I don't even think it's close because, like I said, the Vikings are always just kind of good enough. There's never been a season in my life that day one opener we don't think we're going to the playoffs. They're an organization that is pretty regularly in the playoffs. They're always in the conversation. Cleveland Browns, on the other hand, I mean, they had, I think Jim Brown way back in the day, but other than that, they've really done nothing. So I think anything that they do is unexpected and probably a delight for Cleveland fans. But for Minnesota, I mean, we have high expectations of the Vikings. And, our low expectation team is the Timberwolves, and this year they're just crushing it. So, we're excited about that. But as we look at, our sports teams here in Minnesota, the Vikings are a team that pretty much football is, Texas is really the football state, but I'm telling you, Minnesota, at least at the professional level, isn't that far behind. And everybody is a Vikings fan, and we expect to win. If not, we expect to be competitive. And that's, I think, why we're so disappointed all the time, is because they never really take that final step to, maybe they're cursed. I don't know. Could be.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's kind of like that with this current Cowboys team. I'm like, oh man, this might be the year, and then we just get blown out by the Green Bay Packers. I'm just like,
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't see that one coming, but the Packers don't surprise me because you just never know. They've got a culture of winning. They've had it since, the inception of the team. It's kind of in their DNA that the Packers can pull out stuff out of nowhere. And yeah,
like
they
how?
certainly did. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't think the Chiefs were gonna make it to the Super Bowl this year, but yeah, here I am. I've proven wrong.
Yeah. Well, can't roll Mahomes out too much either.
No. I like Mahomes. I have a soft spot for the Chiefs, but I didn't think they were gonna make it this year. But
Yeah.
I was mistaken. Um, yeah, no. Yeah, I like Dallas. I was actually wearing my Dallas shirt the other day. It says, "How about them boys?"
Huh. Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Very cool.
But going back to books, I can clearly see that. I don't know if I could tell from if you hadn't said that you're a nightclub. You were a nightclub owner, but you clearly have a good eye for entertainment because your channel has a lot of interesting stuff. You did a disco episode where you were giving
Yeah.
candles out to people.
Yep. We had
Um,
we had to disco file a lot of people. We'll be doing that again at some point too.
and I was like, okay. And then you did a hard. You did a rock. You compared rock bands to fantasy
Yep.
novels. Still curious on what Queen is gonna be, but we
I
won't.
know.
We
I
won't.
know.
we,
Well,
we,
people are waiting on volume 2 of that one too. But I've got a ways to go before I do that. It's interesting too because I love making those videos, the theme videos, a lot. They don't do that well. It may be because I did them so early in my YouTube career, which is only 90 days old. So I guess how early can it really be? But for whatever reason, the book content tends to get more views. I'm not sure if that's just YouTube pushing it out to more, having a better sense of who to show this to, because the AI probably sees my disco, thumbnail and goes, "We have no idea who to show this to even." And so that could be, part of it. But I have a blast with that stuff. And, really BellTube in general, I do it because I want to have fun with it. There's a lot of booktube out there that's great, and some are more analytical than I am, but I can be analytical enough to be part of a conversation without, stepping on more analytical, driven content shows.
You like to have fun with it, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise I don't, otherwise I probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
fair.
want to, and the other part of it is that I think, in some regard, I don't know if it's totally true or not, but just kind of having my foot in the water here for the first 3 months or so, it feels like a lot of folks that are regular booktube watchers and even booktubers themselves are more introverted in general, and maybe didn't spend a lot of time doing the kinds of things nightlife wise that I have. So if I can bring some of that energy to their lives and create some fun in an environment that they're comfortable in, which might be their house or their office or their phone or whatever, without having to go, sit in a nightclub where maybe they're not super comfortable, then awesome. Then I'm doing what I like to do.
Yeah, I mean, you were even like, "Hey, maybe I'll show up to a booktuber's house and we'll hang out." I'm like, "Oh
Yeah,
man, that's."
I'm going to do it. There's no doubt if I'm going to do it, it's a matter of when I'm going to do it. Provided that the channel continues. I always, I like to start things with no plan on an exit strategy, so to speak, but I'm going to kind of go where this journey takes me. If a lot of people decide that they love watching what I'm doing, then I'm going to keep making content. If for whatever reason down the road people seem disinterested, then, who knows? But for right now, it's certainly been a lot of fun. And I think that Can I Come Over idea is something novel and it's fresh and no one's done it. And
Oh yeah, no one's done. I don't think many people could afford to do that.
well, I mean, there's ways to do things. Plenty of booktubers have Patreons. They've
Oh,
got,
that's true.
there's,
Yeah.
there's ways if you, really want to make something happen, you can make it happen. It's just a matter of comfort zone level, I think, to some degree. I'm not suggesting people should go out and, start a Patreon and make a bunch of money and, go travel the world. But, if it's something that's building your business, um, why not? And again, I want to give people a reason to watch my channel. And over the last, it seems like couple of years, that booktube has become more and more popular. I think
Hmm.
it's a little unrealistic to think that the average person is going to watch 50 different booktubers. I mean, if
Oh
they're
no,
even
I
up
watched
only
like,
uploading,
oh man, I watched like 3 or 4 regularly at least.
yeah. I mean, it's the market is it's not saturated, but there's a lot of people in it. And so, in my mind, I got to keep, doing things that keep me relevant or make me a little bit more interesting. It's kind of why I do some of the crazy stuff that I do. I mean, there is a
Oh no, I
reasoning
mean,
behind
I
it.
don't. I didn't
Yeah.
want to sound like I was, like ribbing on you. I was, I think it's funny, and I think that's why you've blown up so quickly. Also, I remember seeing you comment on stuff before you started your YouTube channel, so that
Yeah.
probably helped.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it legitimized the fact that I do understand something about these books that I'm talking about. And, this is not just backdrop. I've read everything on the shelf. It cracks me up that I think what's really popular, I think Tori and Andrew are kind of doing like read your shelf challenge right now where they're
Hmm.
reading everything. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know a book I haven't read. I mean, I have one, this book. I have not read Caribbean by James Michener. This is the only
I
book
don't even think I've
on my,
heard of that.
yeah, he wrote a lot of these gigantic books that are geographically, themed. And I think he's his most well, I don't know if it's most popular one, but I know Alaska is a big one, and he's picked these regions over the years, and these are humongous books. And I think that it's basically historical fiction, but
Yeah, it
I'm
looks like
not
a door
entirely
stopper.
sure. Yeah.
You probably crack someone over the head with it if you wanted.
Oh, that thing is a beast. Yeah.
You've done some interesting shows on your channel. You did a DNF challenge
Yeah.
with books that other booktubers had DNF'd, which was kind of shocking when I saw that Philip had DNF'd something. But then
Yeah.
again, I saw that bit you shared on Twitter. I'm like, well, okay. I can see how that
It's
might
funny
scare
because
some people off.
of course I'm gonna pick, the craziest part of that to put on Twitter. But in reality, I kind of understand why Philip DNF'd it. And I don't think if he picked up the book today, he would. I think he would actually read it and I think he'd like it. Um, but he read it a really long time ago, and I would imagine that the kinds of materials he needed to read were pretty, archaic in nature. And, the
Mm-hmm.
guy speaks Old English and Welsh and all of this. So he had to have been reading a lot of crazy stuff. And this is just one more crazy thing that he probably thought, I don't really need to read. So I'll get back to it at some point, and never
Probably.
ended up never doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you read some other books. I mean, I do try to keep up with your videos because I quite enjoy them when I watch them. Like I saw your I mean, you also put on costumes. You wore like a not Jaf, safari costume.
Oh, yeah.
For
Absolutely.
Was that for the Lit RPG video? I don't
That was Lit
remember.
RPG Starter Guide. I've done that for another one as well. And then the video that just dropped today, I had this whole circus ringmaster
Yeah.
uh, outfit on as well. Again, it's got to be fun. I want to do something different.
How do you
And
how do you pay for all those costumes? Like, did you already own those,
I own everything.
or did you just like get them off of Amazon recently?
No, I actually own everything from all the years in the bar,
Oh my!
because if you think about it,
Was there
that's
a
15.
safari theme one night?
Well, I mean, there's been themes for everything under the sun. If you one of the reasons why we lasted as long as that we did is because I constantly created new theme ideas and new theme events,
Mm-hmm.
and did that on a weekly basis, sometimes, multiple times a week. And so I have 15 or 16 years worth of Halloween gear. I've got tons of theme party types of outfits and, hats and whatever that I've just kept over the years, and never really thought I would find a use for it. But here we are on BookTube, and it seems to work kind of fun.
You guys also did disco night, I'm guessing.
You know, we had some DJs that would remix disco music into house music, into EDM, but not really specific disco nights, because they wouldn't be that good of money makers. So
So you just did that video for fun.
yeah, that's more my personal taste stuff. But the club also had, I want to say, 13 huge disco balls hanging in the middle of the main dance room. We had 3 rooms in our club, and the main room had 13 gigantic disco balls hanging from 40-foot ceilings. So yeah, I took one, two, three. I took most of them with me when we closed, and then I ended up giving away most of them to fellow teammates at the bar, that I felt like that they should get a piece of our club with them as we, wound down the business. But I still have a few of them here, and I'm still going to be doing more disco content on the channel.
You have So wait, have you've read all those books back there, or most of them, or
Yeah.
wow?
And as a
uh
matter of fact, most of the books that I've read, I don't even own. I don't have in physical. I have on Audible, or I have on
oh.
ebook. So if you're talking about Realm of the Elderlings, for example, I've
Mm-hmm.
read everything in that, right? All 14 books or whatever it is. Or is it 16 books? How many books is that? Is it 5 series? One, two. Yeah, it's 5. It's 16 books. So I've read all those, but I have them all on ebook. Same with like Sandman Slim. I've read all 10 or 12 books of that.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Eric Carter. I'm on book 9. I mean, there are a lot of series that I've Mistborn, another one, both Era 1 and Era 2. I've read all of that, but again on ebook.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my goals is eventually to buy all of the books that I have ebook in physical.
I see. Yeah. So I mean, I know you're also you also I guess you either started Malazan or have you already read Malazan? You're just reading it
No,
again.
I've not read it. I just started. I read the prologue the other night,
Oh, okay.
and now today I've got to get through 100 pages. If I want to stay on schedule to get my insane TBR for February done, I have to get 100 pages of Malazan done
Oh my
pretty
gosh.
much every day till Wednesday. And I got to wrap it up on Wednesday because then I got to get Demon and White in, and I'm only giving myself like 8 or 9 days for that. And that's a big, big, dense book. And then I got to get back to Shogun for about a week because I'm only on book 3 right now, and I want to be completed through book 3 in Shogun before the FX TV show starts on the 27th.
Well, you
So,
see, I've gathered that you're a very tenacious reader. Either that, or you just like punishing yourself. I don't know. Maybe both. I don't
um,
know.
I would say I would say I like a challenge, and I like a challenge that I know I can accomplish. Right.
Mm,
So if you're going to say, "Can you dunk a basketball?" The answer is no, and I never will be able to. But can I read a difficult book? Yeah, definitely. And I also look at it in a way, Britton, like I'm going to be reading anyway.
yeah.
So, you know, it's just a matter of what I'm reading. And that's why I do a lot of lit RPG on the channel, is because I listen to that on audiobook when I'm working at my normal company. And it's like popcorn listening. It's easy. And for my sight reading, I choose generally, at least since I found BookTube, um, I found that some of the more complex series that are out there, and even some of the standalones that are complicated, I like. I want to go. I was intimidated at first when I'd heard about Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe, and I put it on the back burner forever. And I kept hearing how it's so hard, and you don't understand what it means, and you're so confused, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, you know what? It's just an effing book, right? I mean, this is not an advanced PhD physics, astro, whatever. It's just a novel. How hard can it really be?
I'll wait for the Brian Bell, Gravity's Rainbow video. That's the one I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah. So haven't read that one yet, but I mean, and just there are some really smart people that write some of these complicated books, and I don't presume to be anywhere near the IQ level to understand them as they're written, but it doesn't really make a difference if you can pick up some nuggets of good information. If you enjoy yourself as you're reading it, that's really good. I don't DNF books very often because most of the time I find stuff within the books themselves that I like. This past January, where I did that DNF challenge, that was tough because I legitimately did not like most of the books that I read last
Hmm.
month, and I would have quit on them. I don't think I would have ever picked them up though. So I think I'm relatively decent at knowing what's going to vibe with me and knowing maybe what's not going to vibe with me
I guess it's good that you
before I
know
get
now.
started. Yeah, absolutely. But it's interesting too because some of those books that I didn't like, there's other booktubers that they just love them. So that's great. And there's something for everybody.
Yeah, I actually own the fifth season. It's funny. I started this new series on my channel called "What's the Big Fuss," where I basically have my beloved audience pick books that are popular for me to read. Mostly on the fantasy side, but I'm like, you can choose whatever genre you want. Fifth season was on there, and Voice of War as well, and Malice from John Gwynn.
Okay.
Malice, as far as I'm aware at the moment, Malice and Voice of War are tied right now. Voice of
Gotcha.
War was in the lead for a bit, then Malice was in the lead, and now they're tied. So it's
Well, I have not read A Voice of War, but just obviously, in my opinion, I would read Malice 100 times over the fifth season to zero. So,
well, the season is not in the lead, so
yeah, I mean, it's just,
though it
I,
would have been
I, I don't, I don't even think they're comparable books. I mean, they're not
it
comparable
would have
books
been very convenient if that won because I actually own it.
yeah, I mean, but Malice is a great book, and and Malice, in my opinion, of the Faithful and the Fallen, is the weakest of the four books. I think that's probably a pretty common thought. So, but again, that being the weakest of the four books, for me, destroyed the fifth season. I mean, there was nothing redeeming for me about the fifth season other than, and it actually cost me some subscribers. The minute I said it was the worst book I read for the month, all of a sudden I dropped like 4 subscribers right off the bat.
Oh
People are pissed off. You need to learn how to review a book. That book is great. Um, but in any case, Malice and Faithful and the Fallen, man, that's great fantasy. I can respect and appreciate what N.K. Jemisin, the author of Fifth Season, did. And I said flat out right in the video that there's no doubt she's a skillful writer. You could, it's like if someone sits down at the drums and you're a drummer,
hmm
you can tell within 3 seconds if they know what they're doing or not. And you can
hmm
kind of get an appreciation for what level they're really at. Are they beginner? Are they pretty good? Are they intermediate? Are they advanced? Or are we talking, complete expert level? And there was no doubt in my mind that N.K. Jemisin is an expert level writer. It just was not for me. So,
Yeah, that happens. I've had a couple of books like that. Um, though I generally eh. I try to I'm kind of like you. I like to try and find books that are that will appeal to me,
yeah.
and I think I've gotten good at sniffing out books that are that will appeal to me.
Yeah.
Also, I
I mean,
read
in book,
widely, so that's not too difficult. I guess.
yeah, and BookTube has helped quite a bit too, especially if you find some people whose tastes you generally align with, or at least if you can find some BookTubers that are good at describing what you're getting yourself into.
hmm
So it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to align with their tastes, but if they're pretty good at describing the premise and it sounds something appealing to you, even if they didn't like it, then right. But yeah, BookTube's been invaluable for me, particularly Mike, and I'm going to be having him on. When I start doing these live streams in the next couple of weeks, um, he's coming on, and I'm literally going to start that show with a listing of everything he's gotten me to read,
I keep trying.
and
I keep
it
trying
is
to.
nuts.
I keep trying to get Mike on my show. It's been really tough to pin him down. And then I'll talk to you and I'll talk to like John Mint and I'll be like, he's like, oh yeah, I got Mike on my show. I'm like, how? It's like,
I mean, again,
also that man's probably crazy. I mean, I get it. The man's probably crazy busy. I mean, my God, he's one of the biggest people on our side of the internet anyway. So
he is. Um, So, I mean, I can't speak for Mike. I don't know what goes into his decisions on where he, spends his time. I do know that obviously with a full-time career, wife and kids, he's got to be probably, pretty for the amount
occupied.
of requests that he probably gets. I think he needs to be somewhat careful that he doesn't overcommit. And in my case, we probably have a little bit more in common, to be honest with you, because we're more of the same age. And, who knows? But I can't speak for him.
Yeah, no. I saw him mention the other day he was in a military family. I'm like, God, so that's why he shaves his head.
Ha! I think he shaves his head because I think his wife told him to, that it was going anyway, and
Oh,
might as well make it a look.
fair enough. Fair enough.
I'm
Fair enough.
lucky. I think I'm actually gonna have my I think at this point in my life, I'm actually gonna have my hair. So it's great, as much as I have, so I could put some photos up of me with just gigantic fro and super long mullet ponytail. I've
The
got all
Rick
those
James
hairs.
hair.
I used to have them, man.
I um, I mean, I guess when you do your visiting booktuber, I forget what it's called. I apologize. But
The
Tori
"Can
also
I come
lives
over"
in
segment.
yeah. Um, I guess you wouldn't have to travel very far to see Tori. Doesn't she also live in Minnesota?
Oop. You could cut out. Were you saying Tori?
Oh, I said you probably don't have to travel very far to see Tori.
Oh, for Tori. Yeah, sorry, the stream cut out for a second.
Oh,
Yeah, Tori lives about an hour and a half away.
wow.
She's out of the metro area, but not too far.
Wow. Yeah, I'm also trying to get her on my show at some point. She's always been friendly to me. Well,
Cool.
it's all fun. Um, but yeah, you're reading Shogun right now, which I saw that was kind of a big thing last year, and then
Mhm.
there's a trailer because there's like a show
Yeah, so
miniseries,
there's a super super high budget
and it looks
miniseries
really good.
coming. Yeah, it looks like they put all the time and the attention into it that's required. When I was a kid, like when I was in middle school age, there was a Shogun miniseries. It was hugely popular. And from what I understand, I don't remember it much because I was 10 or 11 years old probably when it was on TV. But it was really pretty faithful, I think, to the books. So it sounds like this one's even that plus a huge budget. So with A-list actors, so should be great.
Yeah, they got the guy from oh man, I mean he was in John Wick Chapter 4, but he's been in a bunch of other things.
Okay.
He was in the
I
Twilight
haven't looked.
Samurai, I think.
I haven't looked at the cast, but I've seen a couple of the trailers, and to be honest, I've sort of stayed away from watching the trailers because I don't want to know what's coming up in the book. If I happen to see something on TV, I'm trying to stay ahead of the show with the book.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. I was kind of like that with Dune, except I stalled on Dune because it was 2020 and COVID was not fun. I
Right.
was I was going through a tough time, let's say.
Gotcha.
Um, so yeah, that didn't pan out, and I was like, you know,
I
um,
hear you.
you like, so I mean, what are you doing now?
What do you mean?
No, I mean, are you still in the nightclub business, or are you not doing that anymore? You're just kind
Oh
of.
no. So I closed the bar 4 years ago. I own a company called Bell Packaging Innovations, and
Oh,
our main product is called BellFlask. I'll grab one. Hang on one second.
he runs a business called BellFlasks. I love this man.
Yeah. So I invented and I have 4 patents on these flexible flasks. They
Oh my
hold 15 to
gosh,
16 ounces. There's no metal in them whatsoever. So come in a bunch of different designs. There's camo and leopard print.
that's
You see
awesome.
how much is in there. So there's, clear sides. So there's measurement lines. You can see exactly how much you got in there. They get past every metal detector because there's no metal. So a lot of people take them to festivals and football games and baseball games and all that stuff. And yeah, it's been a really good business. I do all my sales on Amazon for the most part. And we're usually in the top 10 in the drinking flask category on all of Amazon in the United States. So
That's
that's what I normally do.
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's great.
But that's how I came up with Bell Tube for a name, because since I already had Bell Flask, I was like, okay, let's just keep the branding together and go with Bell Tube. It's how I picked the colors for the branding of the channel. I just went right along with what I've already got with my other business, and it seems to make sense.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, that's I'm sorry, that's funny. So, like, it kind of looks like those like oh man, looks like those water pouches
Yeah,
that you like
yeah,
bring to the desert or something.
yeah. They're similar in some regard to that, but there's a very special layer in the packaging that I make. That, and again, before the bar business, I was in the packaging business, so I know about a lot of different weird things. But there is a layer in that which essentially gives the product inside the same protection that a glass bottle would against outside oxygen and air and moisture. And so
Mm.
what that means is you can put in expensive scotch or whiskeys or wine or really whatever, and it's going to give the same protection that a glass bottle would. So people can, use them for, years and years if they want.
So in other words, you have lived a full life. Like when you were at the
I hope I'm
gates.
not done.
No, I mean, I'm just saying when you're at the gates, at least you can sit back and be like, you know what? I regret very little.
I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty open and honest about the regrets that I have, and there's lots of them. I mean, I think that if people rush through life, like a bull in a china store and say, I regret nothing and la la la, then they've not learned much on the way. I think for me, regret kind of, spawns from gaining wisdom.
Mm,
And it's not so much that, oh, I should have gone, left when instead I went right. Not so much those kind of regrets, just more like I regret my actions at a certain point because I wasn't smart enough or wise enough or sympathetic enough or whatever, just mature enough to have made a more competent decision that I would make today. But that's just part of getting older. I mean, you're going to hopefully be more, I don't know if the word is, emotionally mature or, mentally strong at 30 than 20 because you've just, trained your brain better. Same at 40 versus 30, same at 50 versus 40. So hopefully if it's an ongoing journey, the only regrets that I have are, just not knowing what I knew then, now or knowing now what I knew then. So yeah.
well, I guess my point was you've lived an interesting life from the sounds of it.
I think so. I mean, when you're in it day to day, Britain, it doesn't seem any different than anybody else's.
Yeah.
But when you write it all down, yeah, I mean, yeah, sitting and drinking, cocktails with celebrities and running a big nightclub and doing all of that stuff and having some cool growth on BookTube. Yeah, I mean, there's some definite interesting things that, like I said, when you're the one living it, you don't see it as much. So the
Yeah.
good news is for you is that you're young enough, you can basically design your own life right now. So it's good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in college right now. So everyone's
Yeah.
like, every time, like a lot of times I talk with people, they're like, wow, so how do you do this? Like when you're in college, I'm like, well, I set a schedule for myself and I stick to it.
Yeah. But I mean, that will take you far. I mean, that will take you far in any aspect. I don't care if it's, academic in college or reading for, recreational reading or working out, physical fitness, emotional development, really whatever it is. I'm a big believer in keeping to a schedule. Not
Hmm.
so regimented that, your life becomes a slave to your own calendar, but that you make it a point to schedule the things that are important to you that you want to get better at. So if
Hmm.
it's, whatever it is, if you write it down, at least in my case, I feel like I've got a better shot of actually moving towards that direction.
I mean, do you have any plans of other stuff that you like to read, or are you kind of just a mood reader, go with the flow kind of guy? I mean, do you
Well,
do
it's
you?
interesting because BookTube has changed it a little bit. When I thought to do that DNF challenge was a thought that I had back in November.
Oh
And
wow.
so that was, it took me basically until December to start asking other booktubers, will you help me participate? So that obviously totally, steamrolled over anything that I would have normally read in January because there was nothing in that month that I would have, picked up to go read on my own. Not a chance.
Mm,
Uh, February is a weird month because of the fact that Shogun's coming out, and yeah, and I've had Demon in White on my TBR since I finished Howling Dark, and I really, really do like the Sun Eater series a ton. So that was on there, and then I ran this poll on my channel, letting the community pick which series I was start in February, and they just happened to pick the most dense one of the dozen or so that I listed as options. Of course, they picked Malazan. So moving into March, it's going to get way simpler because I'll probably take a month off between Sun Eater books. I'll probably stay into Shogun, but as far as Malazan goes, I don't think I'll start book two till probably May or June. So maybe April, we'll see. Depends how much I like Gardens of the Moon. But from what I understand, it's a totally different cast anyway in book two. So
Um,
we'll see. We'll
you,
see.
you,
But I don't mood read a lot. Kind of like for now, since I started the channel, I'm reading more about, okay, what fits in line with what I want to do on the channel and kind of set the TBR around there. And if it's something that I don't want to do on the channel, then chances are I don't want to read it in the first place, other than something crazy like a DNF challenge, which I am going to go do again, by the way. I think it's going to be I think it's going to be an annual thing.
yeah, no, it's weird because I don't usually DNF stuff, but I will like put it away for later. Is what I like to call it. I think that's what Tori
Yeah, I'm
calls it as well.
yeah, shelve it for now type of a thing.
I kind of did
Um,
that with Dune. I kind of was like, you know what? I'm gonna shelve this for right now, and I'll come back to it at some point. And then I read it, and I was like, yeah,
Well, I mean, it wasn't the right time for you to read it. I mean, your brain kind of, especially something like Dune that has some very deep philosophical, themes to it. If your headspace isn't in that space while you're reading it, I'm 100% a favor of putting it down for a minute and wait till you get there.
yeah, no, I, I remember, yeah, it's a weird one. There's big worms and sci-fi
Yeah,
drugs and
yeah,
a guy who thinks he's a god. It's crazy stuff. It's crazy stuff.
yeah. And I think that, and I think Mike's read the thing like 13 times or whatever, but when you have books that combine action sequences with great characters with huge overarching themes, I think at different points in your life, those kinds of books will read different, right? So, like, if all you've got to experience is 20 years of life as you read Dune, you're going to maybe get that out of it. But if move up another 20 years and you read it at 40 and you've got 40 years of life experience to understand what he's talking about, you probably get it at a different level. And
Mm.
I think, there's not a ton of books out there that are like that, but I think that that's why Dune is so respected, is because there's so many levels to it, and different readers are going to pick, even the same reader is going to get something different if they space off reading it, over a period of years or decades even.
Yeah, you were talking about books that weren't for you, and and I remember I read a Gene Wolfe book in high school called The Land Across.
Okay.
Didn't get it. But
Look,
everyone's like, bro, read Book of the New Sun. So I'm like, you know what? I'll try it at some point. I don't know when I'm going to do it, but I'll
yeah.
do it.
Yeah. I mean, so again, I mean, when I read Book of the New Sun, it was mostly getting mad at myself saying, this is really stupid. Why aren't you reading Book of the New Sun? That was the first question that I had for myself. It's described as a science fiction meets magic fantasy type of a setting. Well, that's right my wheelhouse. Okay, cool. I like that. It follows this kid who's brought up in a torturers guild. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that seems a little different, but doesn't sound horrible. Okay. At least it's not the farm boy leaving the farm. Okay. We're getting a little bit of an interesting backstory. So what is the issue? Why aren't I reading this? And it kept coming back to everyone saying it's so understandable and it's a head scratcher and you don't know what you're reading. And I'm like, it's not reading a foreign language. In some regard, it kind of is, because a lot of the words that the author uses have been out of fashion for several hundreds of years. But he doesn't make up any words in this book. There's no fantastical fake words in there. I read it. I'm lucky enough to have a Kindle. I read it on Kindle. And the best part is that every time a word came up that I didn't know, I pushed the button and the auto dictionary came up and told me what the word meant. And, it would say, used in the 11th century to describe this type of a soldier. I'm like, oh, okay. So it's a soldier. Great. Move on.
um,
So, yeah.
Gene Wolfe also lived an interesting life. He created the machine that created the Pringle, and he had a really cool mustache.
He did in his later years. I've seen some interviews with him without the mustache.
I have as
Um,
well. I'm like, he doesn't have the mustache.
Yeah,
What are we gonna do?
yeah. The guy's just a brilliant guy. You get that when you read the books, but there are very few books I have a whole lot of interest in rereading. I'm not a big rereader because there's so many books I haven't read already,
Mm,
but he's
I'm the same
definitely in
way.
the will reread category at some point. Same with Dune. I only read Dune for the first time 3 years ago, I think.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I'll tell you why. It's because back in the 80s when I was, your age, there was a Dune movie and it sucked. It was the dumbest thing in the world.
The David Lynch
Um,
one, you mean?
yeah, and so I had no interest whatsoever in reading the book. I was like, this is dumb. I didn't know what I'm. And the other part of it was is that I came from this place where, well, if it was written in the 50s, this thing's a huge book. It's probably not relevant anymore. I mean, everything I just said is complete garbage. I mean, it doesn't matter when it was written. It's still a seminal work. It's a masterpiece. Big recommend on Dune.
Yeah, no, it's something. No, I do want to try it, but I actually have the Wizard Knight by Gene Wolfe back there. I might read that this year. Oh, there's a thumbs up. If you
Oh,
didn't see
cool.
that.
Yeah, I saw that. That's neat.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have
that's
to get learning on how to do StreamYard because I'm gonna start doing these live streams and I'm gonna be doing that. It's pretty easy to use, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, no, it's not too difficult. I mean,
Okay, cool.
I mean, I don't think you're too old. I think you'll figure it out pretty quickly.
My question mostly is, well, I actually watched a tutorial on it the other day because I was originally going to start these live streams at the beginning of February, and it's become very difficult with the amount of work that I have to do both for my normal company and for my reading schedule. So it's kind of pushed off. It's definitely going to happen at the very latest by the 28th because Bryce from Shelf Centered is going to be on the show on February 28th.
Mm-hmm.
I may start it the week before though, so we'll see. But I watched a tutorial, was it yesterday or the day before, basically on how to hook up StreamYard to YouTube and to be able to live stream and do all that good stuff.
Mm. I was about to say it's not difficult. I've done.
I was going to say, but I watched when Mike was talking about how he likes going on other shows because he doesn't have to edit it. I'm trying to figure out what specifically needs editing after a live stream.
I don't know. He's probably
Maybe.
just saying that.
Yeah, I don't know.
No idea.
I am going to ask him though. Say, okay, so what am I in store for here?
Yeah, I usually don't edit my streams. I've only done well, at least for this channel. I've been around for a while, but I've only done 2 or 3 so far. So yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. But no, it's not hard, or at least I don't think it's very hard.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Um. So I guess I'll because I know you have to leave soon.
Yep. I did have to go
So
back to my normal
um,
company stuff.
but
Yep,
I
today
did
too.
want to ask you before you left. Are there any other plans you have for the channel? Or is it just kind of where the wind goes at the moment? Because I
It
can tell from your videos you can be a very spontaneous person. I don't want to say you are a spontaneous person, but I
yeah.
will say you can be a spontaneous person. I mean, you started a
Yeah.
DNF challenge, so I mean,
Right.
not everyone does
The
that.
channel the channel is always going to have some different stuff to it. I think that if all I do was come on and say, this is what I'm reading, this is what I just read, and this is what I'm going to read, I think it's interesting, but I think that there's plenty of great booktubers out there that already do that. And because it's not just Mike and Murphy and Daniel Green, anymore doing booktube, where it maybe was 5 years ago, there's just a handful of people that were really doing it. There's a plethora of content creators now. And the only way that I see myself really trying to carve a spot in a niche for myself is to do things a little bit differently, to have some of these theme types of programs, to come up with challenges that maybe nobody's done or hasn't, outwardly talked about doing. So you're going to see some more of that. At the same time, I don't want to alienate people that are there for the what am I reading and what did I just read and what am I going to read, because that's of interest to people. So I would expect a combination of both of that. And hopefully, like I said, hopefully the YouTube, search and discover program, aka the algorithm, decides that my stuff is worth showing to people that have never seen me before. Because I get those comments all the time saying, hey, you kind of randomly came across my feed. How long have you been doing this? Your show is awesome. And that's probably the most frustrating part, is because all I can do is the part that I'm doing right now here with you, right? I can make a nice set. I can talk a little bit about something that I know. I can provide some entertainment, but ultimately it's really up to that search and discover software to determine how much, how many people are actually going to see this. And yeah, it's my job to make a good thumbnail that people click on. It's my job to come up with a good title that people are curious enough to find out about. But at the end of the day, if not enough people are even seeing that thumbnail to begin with, let alone the content that, you're spending your time and energy creating, that's tricky. So a lot of this is navigating how that works. I'm very, very glad that I've spent the time that I have in those chat rooms over the last, 3 or 4 years, that if I message somebody a question or comment in their chat, they know who I am. They know I'm just trying to learn how to get better. And they've been more than generous with their, know-how and experience. And that's all I can ask for, really. And I'm here to do the same thing for anybody else too. Once I get my legs under me and say, because I'm by no means any kind of a YouTube, you know, my knowledge is a 0 on a scale from 0 to 10. It's somewhere between 0 and 1. I've been doing this for like 93 days. It's not enough
Still,
time.
yeah, it's crazy. Wait, you've been on for like 2 months.
Yeah, 3 months. Yeah, it was 3 months yesterday.
Oh, all right then.
It's still pretty, it's
well, when you said
again,
90 days, I'm like, wow, that's not long. Or well, I guess that's not very long. I don't know.
it isn't very long. I mean, think about it. If you have a new job and you've only been doing it for 3 months out of, college or whatever, that's like nothing.
Yeah.
3 months flies by really quick.
Mm-hmm.
My whole goal here right now is to put out as many videos as I can, try to learn something from each one of them, see what resonates with the audiences, see which audiences resonate with me back, because you do get those comments too, where, you'll have comments saying you should do this or you should do that. And I'm not necessarily in agreement with all of them. I would invite people that are, of that mind to do a channel. Hey, if you're not finding that on your own, is through scrolling, your phone can be an iTunes, a YouTube camera.
Yeah, it was
Make a channel.
Brian Lee Durfee's doing it, and I that's kind of what finally pushed me over the edge. I'm like, okay, if that guy can talk on his phone, he can just
Right.
sit his phone there.
That's right.
And just bullshit for like
Yeah.
20 minutes.
Don't.
You know what? I can do it too. There is no excuse anymore.
I am a firm believer. I really want to get Brian Lee on my show, because I'm a firm believer in this guy is one of the smartest guys on YouTube. His library, he's for sure one of the most well-read people on YouTube. The amount of books that man has read is insane. The guy reads 100 pages an hour. I mean, if you think about that, he's reading a 500-page book in 5 hours. And he's understanding it, he's comprehending it. And I've read his 5 Warrior Angel trilogy, and it's spectacular. You cannot be goofy Brian Lee Durfee. Okay, hey everybody, welcome back to the #1 television show in the history of the universe. I mean, I love the fact that he does that, because he's on his own brand with that. But I would tell everybody, whoever ends up watching this, that dude is one of the smartest guys on YouTube. People should pay attention to his reviews. He knows what he's talking about. He's fully embraced his YouTube persona, which may be his real life persona. I don't know. But I've got mad respect for Brian Lee Durfee. The dude's got, he delivers the goods. He's read all the books. He'll tell you about all the books.
Well, Yeah, I think that is all we have for today. Thank you, Brian Bell, for coming on here. If you want to shill stuff, I like to ask this before people leave. If you want to shill anything, if you want to, well, promote any social media you have, by all means. I know you
Sure.
have like a
You can
Twitter.
find well, you can find me on Twitter or X. It's just Brian Bell 7. That's easy to find me. Those are also in the descriptions on all the BellTube videos. So if people go to BellTube, definitely click that like button and subscribe. That will help the search and discover program find me more people to do funky dances for and put costumes on for and all that good stuff. And of course, if people want to check out my other business, they can go to bellflask.com. And that's an easy one to remember. It's got a super cool website and it'll take you right
You like to keep it
over.
simple. I respect that.
It's got to be memorable. If it's, it's weird that, people are actually calling me BellTube in chats. And I'm like, whatever. That's fine.
Uh,
Doesn't matter to me.
Well, thank you for coming on and giving some time of your day here. I won't hold you on too much longer, and hopefully, I won't have to wait too long to know what what fantasy book Queen will be. Do the video. Do it as soon as possible.
The epic rock pairing will happen. I promise. Now you put the pressure on me. I got to make it a series that you like, or the complaints are gonna through the moon. So maybe I should do that. Find out what Britton likes first. Find out which one I can put to Queen that's in Britton's wheelhouse. Then everybody wins, right?
All right. Well, again, thank you again for taking time out of your day, and well, we should do this
You
again
got it,
sometime.
brother. All right.
Take
Have a
care.
great Friday afternoon, Britton. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. Thank you.